Hello, and welcome to Quackalope, and today, I am going to reveal a most dastardly plot orchestrated by yours truly and Mr. Jesse Anderson. You see, we have been deceiving you all along. We created this platform for the sole purpose of tricking you into learning about new board games. Yes, we are quite nefarious indeed. And today, I will entice you to learn about another game by the name of Book of Villainy, published by Gold Seal Games. And if it wasn't clear enough, I have been doing my very best to embody a horrible villain. And when I say horrible, I mean horrible at what I'm trying to do. In this game, you are going to be exactly that. B-list villains trying to do your very best to gain some level of notoriety and for people to take you seriously. However, years of trying have kind of showed you that maybe villainy isn't quite up what you wanted it to be, but you're not giving up. You're going to, instead of becoming a mastermind of a villain, going to write your own book about how to be a villain in the small city and where you're at. And that is going to be the objective of the game. Through set collection and rondel movement, you're going to try and collect chapter cards that are going to, in combination in the way that you organize them in front of you in a sort of tableau, give you points at the end of the game. And whoever has the most points by said end of game will get a publishing deal or something. Maybe you'll get your manuscript featured in the local newspaper. I don't know what can B-list villains, strive for. But either way, that is going to be the main conceit of the game. This is going to be a game for 2 to 4 players, and it's going to be fairly straightforward what you're doing every turn. On your turn, you're going to be doing the following things. You're going to move from one location to the other. Once you move to that location, you're going to activate the different abilities that are on those tiles. Then afterward, you have optional actions that you can take, which are going to be either playing henchman cards, and those henchman cards are going to give you different types of abilities, or playing gadgets. Now, in the game, you're not going to be any type of villain. You have a role, you have a personality, a persona, if you will. You can either be the manipulator, which seemed to be the nice old grandma that has now turned to a dark life of crime. And when I say crime, I just mean bad deeds. The genius that is trying to help, prevent everything from exploding around her. Her inventions don't tend to be very safe. The bully, which really reminds me of a 90s cartoon character. And if you know who I'm talking about, let me know. They used to have like this big plushy spider with a mustache. Yes, I am old. And the unhinged witch. Do I really have to explain what this they 100% look crazy. They have a cannon behind them. And the despot. All of these characters are going to work very similarly. The only difference between them is that each one of them starts with a particular gadget. And I'll explain what gadgets do soon, but they give you special abilities that other players don't have access to. Now that we know who we are, we should present our main opponent. There's a hero in town, but they don't really take us too seriously. If a hero ever lands on a space where we're at, they're going to give us a slap in the wrist, which usually involves losing henchmen. And you'll understand very soon why that is actually a pretty big deal. Now, how does the game actually work? As I said, you're set collecting, and you're set collecting specifically these chapter cards that are in the center of the table. And before I get into the actions, I think it is important to understand what these are. Chapter cards are going to have different types of symbols in the upper left-hand corner of each card. And those symbols are going to be basically end-of-game victory conditions that you're going to have to work really hard to get to. So depending on how you start formulating your book, you start creating different types of sequences and combos that you're going to want to be paying attention throughout the entirety of the game. And every chapter, in addition to having that end-of-game victory condition, may also have straight-up victory points that you'll be able to gain. Every chapter is also going to have a cost to it. You're not going to be able to write your book without actually experiencing some bad deeds. For example, in Chapter 6, every time someone shows you a picture of their pets or kids, sigh with a disappointed look and say, "I thought you said they were cute." Or you can use this little number, orchestrate a traffic stopping protest where you are protesting the terrible traffic in the city.
How exactly do you complete these tasks and get the necessary experience to actually create this chapter? Well, by hiring other people to do it for you, of course. Henchman cards are going to double as two different things: resources and immediate actions that you can take by spending the card. The resources are going to come in play for the chapters themselves. Take notice that at the bottom of each card, you're going to have different colors. Those colors are going to tie into the different henchmen. So if you ever want to get a chapter, you must have the necessary henchmen in order to get them. Now that we have this, now that we understand what chapter cards are, now let's jump into each one of the actions. So the first thing that you're doing on your turn is that you're going to have to move, and you always have to move. Whenever you move, you'll grab your character and you'll decide to move 1 or 2 spaces. The key here is that you'll never be able to move to a space that is already occupied, either by the hero or other villains. However, once you decide to move and you make that decision, you'll be able to activate one of 2 actions. You're either going to take the righteous action, which is always actually going to be at the outermost edge of the tile, or the deplorable action, which is going to give you probably better benefits, but it comes at a cost. You see, this hero will be moving throughout the game, and if that hero is ever sent or moves into your location, they're going to give you a slap in the wrist. And remember those henchmen that we've been working so hard in order to create our chapters? Well, we're gonna have to spend a few of them, and that's never good in this type of game. So after you make that decision, you'll take whatever action is stated on that tile. And to give you an example, and I won't go through all of them in detail, these actions are going to be either grabbing new henchman cards, and those cards will either be specifically of a color, or they'll tell you that you can grab any color. You'll also be able to write new chapters of your book. You'll do that by drafting any of the 3 cards that are available in the display. Whenever you do draw a chapter card and add it into your tableau, because you have the necessary resources to spend, you'll be able to allocate that card either to the beginning or to the end of your book. Always trying to get an ascending sequence of numbers, because that will score you more points at the end of the game. The other things that you can do on your turn are moving pages around. So because you're only adding pages to the beginning or to the end of your book, it's probably going to be a little bit messed narratively. So you're going to have the option of kind of swapping things around depending if you activate that special action. And probably my favorite action here is also going to be plagiarizing. Every character is going to come with a plagiarized chapter card and a plagiarized token. If another villain has a deed that you deem particularly interesting and that could enrich your book and the reading experience for your potential customers, you can plagiarize that chapter and put it into your book, completely changing that story. And if you're not 100% sure that that was a perfect chapter to plagiarize, you'll 100% be able to start plagiarizing other chapters later on by a specific action. And you'll be doing this throughout the entirety of the game, balancing between, do I get resources right now? Do I go for that chapter because it seems like it'll be perfect for my end of game victory conditions? Or do I start kind of messing other players up a little bit by taking away their valuable resources? One element that I didn't talk about is that player interaction is in this game. Beyond the drafting that you're going to be doing here on the middle of the back alley, you're also going to have the snitch token. If you ever move to a location that has a snitch token, remember when I said that the hero might land on your tile? Well, you're going to be the person that sends the hero to a particular location to try and take away cards from that person. But in terms of strategy, remember that the hero also counts as a step that people are jumping. So if you don't want someone to do a particular action, you can always use the heroes for that purpose. And so throughout the game, you'll be doing that. As I said, collecting resources, making up the best book possible, and the end of the game will be triggered when somebody writes their 6th chapter. And from that point onwards, you will then go ahead and score victory points. So this is going to be a very simple and straightforward game with set collection and a really zany theme. from what I've seen of the cards, are actually quite humorous and are fairly enjoyable. And you start having a lot of fun with just kind of like the story that you're doing. This is a type of game that I would recommend people to kind of role play a little bit and really get into the characters that you're trying to kind of be. For example, I'm little grandma and I'm going to put a lemon in your ice cream. I don't know why that would be particularly bad. Lemon usually is a good combination with ice cream, but either way, try to really embody each character. And so mechanically, what I like about this game is that you're always going to have some tough decisions. It's a little bit of push your luck. You're either wanting to take those really powerful, deplorable actions or keep it safe and go for the sure thing. But that's not always going to be super straightforward, right? And I like that balance in a game that's fairly light, that gives me some level of decision making. The other element that I find quite fascinating is also how you're building up your set collection. Usually in games of set collection, your tableau or the area in which you're kind of organizing your cards is a little bit stagnant or actually doesn't have any purpose in the way that it's ordered. But here, because of the different types of victory condition and endgame scoring conditions, the order matters a lot, right? And I like that ability that you can kind of swap around cards and be a little bit mischievous with your plagiarized chapters to try and get the perfect book possible. I also really like that each one of the different resources, right, like that balance between each of those decisions actually are pretty important in order to kind of change the rules of the game. For example, the Trickster, discard a Trickster to move directly to any unoccupied location, lets you jump from place to place. The Fanatic is going to make other spaces feel like they weren't occupied, kind of giving them that opportunity. And one thing that we really didn't get into very much are the gadgets, and the gadgets also have some crazy, insane abilities you're going to be able to kind of fold into the game itself. Again, I've always enjoyed games that kind of give you a set of rules and then give you cards that break those rules, and it's kind of up to you and your creativity how you create the best possible moves from that. But ultimately, if you like a game that is fairly straightforward to teach and learn and to comprehend, but does have its nuance, is very inviting, is pretty age appropriate for different strokes and different people, and you enjoy that it doesn't take itself seriously, that it knows how to have a laugh and it knows how to make you laugh, I think that Book of Villainy is one that you're definitely going to want to consider. And if it is something that you find interesting, make sure to go to the Kickstarter page, where we have linked down below, to check out everything a little bit more intently. And with that, thank you so much for tuning in into another Quackalope preview. If you like what we're doing here on the channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, and leave a comment with your favorite nefarious deed that actually isn't very nefarious at all. But regardless of what you do, remember to do the important thing. Get out and cause some mischief, but in a way that doesn't really hurt anyone or does absolutely anything. We'll see you guys next time.